What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, Piers Austin, and we are brought to you by Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance on Facebook and on YouTube. First, I just want to say a big shout out to all the Facebook groups and pages that are allowing me to stream this wonderful show on your platforms. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone. But before we get into the show with my guest, Australian professional wrestling star Randal, I just want to take a couple of quick seconds to take a pause for the cause, if you will, and thank some sponsors. My first sponsor is A-Rock Designs. Now, A-Rock Designs is the company you were seeing in all the wrestling belt groups, all the wrestling pages, everything that you see. They make custom cups, hoodies, t-shirts, keychains, tumblers, you name it, they make it. They made me this custom CM Punk tumbler, and it is amazing. They are based in Georgia in the United States. If you want to get your hands on something similar like I do, hit up Ashley Rodriguez, my good friend, and she will take great care of you. And she's got great prizes, and she does a great product as well. My next sponsor is Signal Studios. So if you're an independent professional wrestler and you want to get some new entrance music, every wrestler needs to have some fly fucking music, guys. Hit up Signal Studios on Facebook. Now, Signal Studios is a recording studio based in Sydney, Australia, run by my good friend Rafi Tomasian. And if you're a musician and you want a place to rehearse or record in Sydney, Signal Studios has the most comfortable place that you could actually be, which will get your creative juices flowing. Also, I'm still waiting on my third sponsor to give me an image so I can give them a proper plug. But my third sponsor is Wasaf Championship Belts. Now, look, every pro wrestling fan either owns a replica championship belt or wants to own a championship belt. So if you want to get your hands on a custom championship belt or a replica of your favorite championship belt, hit up Wasif Championship Belts on Facebook. That's WASIF Championship Belts. But guys, also, if you want to support this show, you want to get a nice fly shirt like I've got here, head over to prowrestlingtees.com/MWA World and pick up some of our merchandise and support us. Show us some love. But guys, before I get everyone off kilter, Daniel, good evening, brother. Thank you for tuning in. Same with Joel Southgate. I'm going to bring in the man himself. This is IWA star Randal. Randal,
Hello,
how you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I'm pumped, bro. You know, just sitting here at 11 p.m. at night doing an interview with one of Australia's hottest talents, man. I'm pretty pumped, pretty excited. How's your day been, dude?
My day, it's all right. It's all right. It's pretty cruisy, man. So I'm a bit of a night owl, so this is perfect.
Oh, man, so am I, man. I kind of go off US time half the time, so it's actually quite refreshing to have someone say they want to do an interview at 11 p.m. because it works perfectly for me. So, but
Awesome.
man, how's everything been, man? Like, you know, this COVID shit's been pretty crazy, man. So, you know, you guys haven't been able to do a lot of shows and, you know, get out there. What have you been doing to keep yourself busy, man? Keep yourself sane?
Man, just in the real world, I've been working, man, but it sucks, man. We haven't had shows for, 6 months now? I don't know. Our last show was March. So, I think we were probably one of, if not the last New South Wales promotion to do a show in front of a crowd, I think. But it's been pretty crap, man. But I enjoyed the detox the first couple of months, but now I'm itching to get back. So
yeah, is there any plan for IWA to have some shows coming up anytime soon?
I actually spoke to Mark Mercedes, the promoter, 2 days ago. We were supposed to have one about a week ago when things were looking good, but then there was the whole outbreak in Melbourne. And Adam Pokrajak, g'day, brother.
Alcoholic Adam.
Mate, I'll tell you a story about Adam in a second. We were supposed to have a show about Yes, it was in March. It was in March, not April. I was in that match. Yeah, we were supposed to have a match. I think it was a show September 5th. But yeah, there was a whole outbreak in Melbourne, and then things got crazy, and then we had to can the show. I think we postponed the show, and it is scheduled for the 21st, I believe, 21st of November. And I spoke to Mark the other day, and he said it is a go ahead if things stay all good. The club's keen to do it. We can fit up to 150 people in the venue, so hopefully things stay as is or get better. That way we can go ahead with the show.
Nice. And do you can you tell us where the show is going to be?
It's going to be at St. John's Park Bowling Club. It's one of our regular venues we run. We do that show before COVID, we used to do that show about 4 times a year, every school holidays. So, it'll be at St. John's Park Bowling Club. It'll be our first show back if it happens.
Man, if it happens, I'm going to be there, bro. I'm itching to go see some live wrestling, man. So maybe me and Adam can rock up and get pissed together like the alcoholic that we all know Adam is.
Mate, Adam Pokrajak's first show was an IWA show at St. John's Park Bowling Club, and the reason he went there is because of me.
You know what? He actually told me that story. He actually told me that.
There you go.
He actually told me that. But so, Randall, getting into pro wrestling, man, were you always a fan of wrestling growing up as a kid, or was it something that came on like later in life for you?
Yeah, I've got the standard story, man. I just grew up watching it as a kid. I think I started around 5 or 6 years old. I wish I could remember the first time I saw wrestling, but it was around that time, like kindergarten, year 1, I think. So yeah, I just haven't grown out of it, man. I thought I would, but I haven't.
Hey, man, I'm 38, bro, and I'm still trying to grow out of it, man. I'm married with kids, and even my 4-year-old son goes, bro, enough wrestling, please. But so when was it the time that you really decided, you know what, I want to get into this. I want to dip my foot in and try this for a living and try this as getting in the ring and being a professional wrestler?
I can't pinpoint a time I actually thought, yeah, I want to do this. I think it was just something like, I've loved wrestling ever since I was little. So I think it's just something that I kind of expected, to do ever since I was little. But yeah, I guess getting into actually like Aussie wrestling and stuff, I did go to a lot of shows as a kid. My dad used to take me to a lot of IWA and AWF shows. They were the kind of 2 big main things here in New South Wales. So we used to go every time they were in Blacktown or surrounding suburbs. But yeah, that's how I got into wrestling, and then into Australian wrestling. And you asked me before we come on here where I trained. I've got a bit of a different story to your standard. I looked up, I Google searched a school or whatever. I was actually working at my local IGA supermarket when I started there when I was 14 or 15, and I met a guy by the name of Craig Fuller. Now, Craig used to wrestle under the name Chrism. He was never a big star or anything like that, but he wrestled for UWA mainly, which is now, I think, Rock and Roll Wrestling. I think that's what they're called now.
Was UWA run by Scarecrow?
Originally, yes, and I'll get to Scarecrow in a sec. But yeah, I think it's ran. I'm not sure who runs it now, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Rock and Roll Wrestling now. But yeah, so Craig, I was working with Craig at the IGA. It was his weekend job. I think he was trying to pay off a house or whatever he was trying to do. But obviously, we got on real well. Both wrestling fans, and I think he just kind of said, "Oh, do you want to wrestle?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was probably about 15 or 16 at the time, and he just took me under his wing, and this guy had never trained anyone before. He just taught me the basics. He taught me what he could, lockups, chain wrestling. I'd go to shows with him, and we'd go early. I'd set up the ring. We'd get in there nice and early, and I'd run ropes. I'd learn how to bump and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I got my start in wrestling. Eventually, I got bookings. And yeah, so he taught me what he could. He was really good friends with Scarecrow, and he hit up Scarecrow, who I think used to run the UWA school for a bit, and he still had kind of at his house. He had the old blue mats and stuff, and we'd go over to his house, and he'd train with us, and he'd teach me what he knew. Scarecrow was way ahead of his time, man. I wish he was around today. He would have done really well. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started, and then I didn't feel too confident in the ring against people I didn't know, because I really wasn't trained properly. I'm not going to hide that or anything. But I ended up going and training with PWA for like probably nearly 2 years, I think, when they were out at Hoxton Park. But yeah, I trained there. I trained at AWF. I trained at the Australian Pro Wrestling Gym and stuff. So kind of been everywhere. So yeah.
But that's the good thing. Like, you haven't just sort of like attached yourself to one school. You've gone and sort of learnt from several different places. And in doing that, you find that you're learning different styles, and you're also learning from different wrestlers. Like, each coach, each wrestling trainer is going to have their own different style and their own different flavor to it. And with that, you're going to become a better performer.
Absolutely. The training was different everywhere. PWA hands down probably has the best training in New South Wales. Like, I'm not going to, beat around the bush. That was pretty crazy training. And that was back before, like, the training facility they have now is nuts. Like, you see the talent that comes out of there. It's insane. But AWF had great training. The Australian Pro Wrestling Gym had great training. Our IWA champion came out of there, Chris Abbott. Paris de Silva came out of the Australian Pro Wrestling Gym. That was one of my favorite places to train. Sorry. But yeah, that's. I just went on a bit of a tangent there. Sorry, that's
No, not at all. Please don't be sorry. Tangents are what we do, and that's the thing in this show. It's I'll never stop any of my guests from talking. But you mentioned obviously meeting your trainer and sort of getting the sort of foot in the door. When you sort of started getting the green light from your trainers, I should say, to actually go out and start getting yourself booked. How was it actually going and getting booked on the Australian circuit?
To be honest, I don't think I was ready. Looking back, I definitely wasn't match ready or show ready. I think I was kind of rushed into it, but I was young. I was keen to get in there. I was keen to get on shows, and I think the bookers and stuff that I was going to shows to and bumping before shows, they obviously saw that I was keen to be on shows and they were booking me. But if I could go back, I'd go back and train properly. I'd train at a school. I'm not a fan of my early work. I cringe watching that stuff. So,
but you know what? You'd be surprised how many guys I speak to who say that. It's like, my first match sucked, and my always response is, you never see any or hear of anyone go, yeah, no, I came in and my first match was fucking mwah. Like, seriously, they should have just put the belt on me that match, But I think that's the thing about, obviously, when you get into pro wrestling, is that understanding everyone's going to be bad their first time around. And it's about putting in the reps and putting in those continual, turning up to shows, paying your dues, and getting those opportunities to be on those shows to get better and working with better performers as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, no one's going to be amazing when they first start unless you're Jackson Kelly. But if I could go back and change things, I'd definitely go and train in a school and go and start performing on shows when they'd say I'm ready, instead of just kind of rushing into it.
And do you remember? Pardon me. Do you remember your first match?
It was a Rumble style match. I think I came in at number 4. I think there was 20 guys in it, and I got the shit kicked out of me, like legit. I think it was kind of around that time. It was 2010, so I think the whole kind of the veterans beating up the rookies was kind of phasing out at that point. Things are a lot different now. But man, I got chopped. I got fucking just every move done to me possible. I think they just really wanted to see if I could take it. I just remember coming home and I was just covered in welts.
But I
But
think
I couldn't wait to get back in there.
but I think that still has a place in a way, and it should still have a place in a way because
I agree.
you know pro wrestling, you look at it now. It's more of an athletic. Like you look at the performers in the pro wrestling world, it's more athletes than it was. It's still a showman to a certain degree, but I think they're more looked at more like athletes now. And you look at it from major promotions, even down to like the Australian promotions and the top Australian promotions. They're not out of shape. Everyone's in shape. Everyone is at a very high quality. Most of them are at a high quality. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you look at the guys that are on the rise at the moment, like your Matty Warburgs and your Paris de Silvas and guys like that. They are athletes. I don't care what anyone says. They can go. I totally agree with you on that, man.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think it's probably been more of a generational thing as well, where
100%.
obviously it's now in 2020 you look at it across the board where professional wrestlers, they train as athletes, they perform as athletes, and that's where it's really sort of stepped that level of performance up as well. You still get that showmanship, don't get me wrong, but as far as like the athletic ability, it's always been there, but now it's more of a focus on that athletic ability.
Big time. Yeah, man. There's the things that some of these guys are doing now is just like they'd fucking run rings around me, mate. I'm telling you.
So IWA is your main promotion that you work for, and as you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Mark Mercedes. And for anyone who's watching, Mark Mercedes is an Australian wrestling legend. He's been around for many, many years. He's wrestled all over the world. He's wrestled for WWA, WCW, German promotions. How's it been working under Mark Mercedes? Has he been someone who's really sort of guided you along in the world of professional wrestling, provided you that mentorship?
In a way, yes. I'm laughing because I know him personally, and he's just a he's just a big goose sometimes. You've got to get him on the right day to talk about wrestling. He's very he's just got a lot going on in his life. He runs another business. He's got a family. I think he's studying or training to be like a ferry driver at the moment. He's just got so much crap going on all the time that you have to catch him in the right moment or on the right day to talk about wrestling with him. When you do, though, he gives you some great advice. I mean, he's been there, he's done that. He's done everything in Australian wrestling. If anything, he's one of the most successful promoters in Australia. And I'm not just saying that because I know him and I wrestle for IWA. Like I've seen it myself. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
He's definitely given me a lot of great advice and yeah, just he's a good guy to have around. Especially with his 30 years or whatever it is of experience.
I actually remember meeting Mark Mercedes about 20 years ago, about 2000, 2001. And as we were talking before, a buddy of mine used to be a performer for IWA. And he was the most intimidating. I was just a snot-nosed kid. So, like, yeah, obviously things may be different now. But when I was there, I was just remember seeing him just going, wow, this is a scary dude. Like, just very like, But again, at the time, I wasn't one of the boys and I wasn't in that sort of circle. So,
I think back then he would have looked scary. I think he would have had a full head of hair back then and he would have but nowadays he's just he's just a big teddy bear. I think. I mean, he still has that what's the word I'm looking for? Presence. Yeah, he still has that presence, but lately he's been doing like magic tricks and stuff, and he comes and he shows all the boys all these magic tricks and he pops everyone. It's hilarious, but yeah.
And obviously, wrestling in IWA, Australia, it's pretty much Australia's oldest promotion currently going.
It is.
And you've been wrestling there for nearly 10 years?
Yeah, about 8 or 9 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, what has been it like? Have you seen much as far as talent come and go in that time? And how do you think it's been in the last 10 years? Do you think now has been the highest peak that you've seen Australian wrestling, or it's the highest peak that you've seen IWA within that 10-year time frame?
That's a great question.
Post-COVID,
Oh,
pre-COVID, I should say.
yeah. That's really good. I'm glad you brought that up. When I started there, man, there was a lot of average talent, if you will. It was kind of half-assed, like everything was just half-assed. I think it wasn't until a bunch of the Australian Pro Wrestling Gym boys came in 2015, I think, late 2014, early 2015. Abbott probably touched on this when you spoke to him. He was one of the guys that came through, and I think there was about 4 or 5 of them that came through. And when they come through, I think it kind of lit a fire underneath the guys that were already there, because they were showing everyone up when they were, performing on the cards. And to start, I think Mercedes was just kind of putting them all together. He'd put them in a tag match, or he'd put 2 guys against each other and another 2 guys against each other. And they were standing out, a lot on the cards. And then eventually they got mixed into everything. And then I think late 2015 and through 2016 is when IWA, our crowds got a lot bigger, and people started to kind of notice that there was actually some decent talent, and the cards were great, the matches were great, the shows were awesome. And I think that's when things really looked good for IWA. Still are, especially with the talent that's coming through now. And like you said, man, I've been around for about 10 years now, and right now, or pre-COVID, there's just so many guys now, like so many. I named a few guys before: Wahlberg, Paris, Rig is another amazing talent. You got guys like guys that come up from Melbourne. We usually have the Brat Pack come up, and Lockie Hendricks. There's just so many guys. The talent's crazy. Like, I don't want to wrestle anymore because I'm nowhere near as good as these boys. So, and girls, there is a lot of talented girls as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really enjoy about the IWA product is that you guys really take advantage of social media as far as to build angles, because one of the things which is hard for independent wrestling and also hard for Australian wrestling, which is essentially independent wrestling, is it's hard to follow storylines unless you're at every show every month and you sort of know what's going on, the performers, the characters. And one of the things that I've seen quite a lot of from IWA over the past several years is the use of social media to use it for angles, doing promos that really accentuate the storyline, so that the people that are going to the shows, if they're following the social media, they understand why you've got 2 performers going at a match, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to turn up to a wrestling match and wrestler A is facing wrestler B. I don't really give a shit who wins. It builds more of a care factor of the performance of the 2 workers.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit hard with IWA, only because we're more of a touring company. I think we're never really in the same spot. 1 week we'll be out at Dubbo, and 3 weeks later we'll be like along the Central Coast, and then 2 weeks later we'll be, we're just everywhere all the time. So we're not kind of in the same spot, which definitely has its pros, but has its cons as well. It's always fun to work in front of a fresh crowd, especially like a rural crowd. If we go out to Dubbo or Tamworth, they get rowdy sometimes. They don't. When you think about it, they don't really get much entertainment out there. And when something like wrestling rolls along, even if they're not wrestling fans, because they're such a small town, if they see something is coming to town, they're going to want to go. And they're always really good crowds, man. But the whole building angles and stuff. I think IWA tries to do that as best they can with the socials, like you said, especially around the bigger shows like the Fighting Spirits and the Suplex on the Sand shows. I think it just kind of builds a bit of anticipation for the event for the regular crowd that come.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the year, you guys were actually performing around the corner from my house at Engadine Tavern. And
Oh, okay.
unfortunately, I had to miss it because my son wasn't well. But
Yeah.
definitely, I definitely plan on getting out to the St. John's Park show and showing support for that. And I definitely encourage all the audience to go out and support Australian wrestling, or even if you're in another country, go out and support your local pro wrestling, because obviously you're going to see a lot of great performers, and you're also going to support local businesses as well. We have a question from Christy Black Adams. She wants to know, where do you get your mask from?
So I've got a whole bunch of masks over there. I get my masks custom made from a guy named Mr. Mask Man. He is in Mexico. I've been dealing with him since probably 2013, maybe. But yeah, so I get them custom made by him. Yeah, he's really good. He's a good dude.
There you go, Christy. You can go get yourself some masks. Randall's giving you the information there. So, but as far as like wrestling and for IWA goes, and you've mentioned it's predominantly the main promotion that you work for, is there any roles within IWA or any promotion that you think that you would like to step into post wrestling, or even that you'd like to give your hand in, whether it be like, going in the direction of commentating or helping, the kind of like an agent role, I would say, helping guys put the matches together? Is that something that you see yourself doing further on down the line, or is that something that you currently do now, obviously being there for a period of time?
I do help out wherever I can. Sometimes I help out with like the social medias and stuff like that. Backstage, there's always so many jobs. There's getting music videos together, or doing the music, or the Titantrons, and there's just so many jobs, and I try to help out where I can. But definitely post wrestling, I'd still love to be around. Like you said, commentary. I've actually commentated. When was that? That was at Tamworth alongside Ed Locke, the legendary Ed Locke.
Yeah.
Anyone listening would know that Ed Locke, or that knows Ed Locke, knows that he's just the man. He's the nicest guy ever. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I'd love to commentate. I'd love to do something to do with wrestling if I ever finish up. I don't really plan on finishing up anytime soon, but yeah.
It just all depends, man. Like it just depends on what happens in the future. But it sounds like you've definitely got your hands full there. But is there any other promotions that you'd really like to sort of start branching out? Do you go and try and wrestle, Australia wide for some other promotions? You mentioned Melbourne. There's MCW there, and also BCW. Do you ever try and branch off down there, or you predominantly just stay with the IWA brand?
I've always kind of been loyal to IWA. I have wrestled other places, obviously, but IWA will always be home. I mean, like, who wouldn't turn down working for MCW? You know what I mean? I'd love to work for MCW. I've got a lot of good friends that work down there, a lot of good friends in Melbourne. So, I mean, who knows? I've only ever been in Melbourne once. That was for the big WWE show they did down there a few years ago. And I loved it. I loved Melbourne. I didn't think I would, but it was very fun. I'd love to go down there. Actually, tell a lie. I've been down to Melbourne twice. I did work for Warzone back in 2015, but I was only there. I was only in Melbourne for like 12 hours, so I don't really count that. That's why I forgot about it. But yeah, I did work for Warzone at one point. I worked a match down there. Would love to go back down and work in Melbourne. The obvious thing is PWA. Everybody's talking about PWA. Would love to go to PWA if given the opportunity. That's the hot thing in New South Wales at the moment. Newey Pro is real hot. They don't get enough credit. I think because they're regionalised, they're kind of just in Newcastle. Not a lot of people talk about them, but I've got a lot of good friends that work for Newey. Would love to do some Newey shows as well. Yeah,
Newey Pro is like I actually got dragged to a Newey Pro show a while back, and one thing that I really found was because they have the same, it's at the same venue, the
yeah,
crowd reaction is phenomenal, and
yeah.
to
Exactly what I
see
was
that,
saying before with IWA and touring. It's a bit hard sometimes. You never know, but because they have that same kind of crowd that they know the characters, they know everything that's going on. Yeah,
but it's almost like they know it's the home team advantage when you go to a football game. It's
yeah,
having that feeling, and even to put it into like the ECW arena when ECW, having that passionate crowd, which are just those rabid fans that know what's going on, they know the storylines, they know the workers, and that definitely accentuates it. But like you said, there's definitely pros and cons from IWA, the touring company, and having a company that's predominantly just in the one location as well.
yeah, definitely. Like I said, I don't think Newey Pro gets enough credit. They don't really get talked about too much. But yeah, they pull massive crowds, man. Especially like their big their Rumble show when their anniversary shows and stuff. They pull like 400 plus. And they do their little house shows or their Who shows as they call them. They pack them out with like 100 people, 150 people or whatever. But yeah, Newey Pros is red hot, man. They've got a lot of I've got a lot, like I said, I've got a lot of good friends that go up there and or live there as well and wrestle there, and they're always talking very, very highly of Newey. So I've never been to a Newey show, so that's definitely on the list, I think.
Man, once they start opening up, I plan on making I'm from Sutherland Shire, man, so
that's like
I
what,
plan
3 hours?
Probably about 2.5 to 3, but yeah, man, I'm definitely planning. Adam's actually hit me up and said that he'll actually come past and pick me up and take me to a show, which is quite nice. So, but we do have another question come in from Christy Black Adams, the resident drag queen. She wants to know, what do you consider to be the best match of your career?
Oh man, here we go. I'm terrible at choosing bests and favorites. I can give you a list of like 20.
You know what? It's actually funny. I actually did a live stream the other night, and someone goes, "Who is your favorite wrestler of all time?" And I'm like, "It's a fucking loaded question. How the fuck do I answer that?"
Like some people can just say, "Yep," like Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold. But
to me, it depends on the day.
Absolutely. There's just so many key factors. So many. Man, you got me all flabbergasted. But yeah, our favorite match. Oh man, had a good series of matches with Sid Parker at Fighting Spirit 2 and 3. They were pretty intense. Oh man, any match with Blacktown Workers Club is absolutely bananas for Randal. Yes, the hometown. Any match at the Blacktown Workers is always red hot. I took on one of the Newey Pro guys, Tyson Reed, at the last Blacktown show last year. That was pretty good. Alex Titan at Blacktown in 2017 was a really big match for me. Yeah, there's a handful, I guess.
You know what? You actually mentioned Tyson Reed, and I actually not too long ago saw his promo for that match against you, and he. You know what? I actually quite dig him. He's a very unique character, but very Western suburbs.
Mate.
And for those people not in Australia, when I say Western suburbs, Google Tyson Reed, and that basically explains an esche is what we call in Australia.
Yes, an Esh lad. Yeah, he's a great talent though. He's got a great gimmick. I'm a big fan of his work. I beat him though, so it doesn't really matter. So
you went over that night. That's all we need to know. So Facebook user also has a question here. They want to know, what do you miss most about wrestling in front of a live crowd?
Probably the adrenaline rush, the nervousness and the butterflies you get before you go out. That kind of, where you're breathing in and out and you get the goosebumps or whatever. And as soon as you come through that curtain, man, like the adrenaline rush, I think I miss the most. You don't really feel anything when you're out there. Like you can take a gnarly bump or whatever and you won't feel it, but you'll definitely feel it the next day. But I'd say the adrenaline rush, just the crowd, yeah, just definitely that, yeah.
And obviously, wrestling for 10 years, which is quite a long time. Do you ever have like guys that are new to the business that really come up to you and be like, "Hey man, I got this crazy idea for a spot where like I'm gonna throw you off this fucking balcony right here and put you through," like, you know what I mean? Like in Australian wrestling, you don't really see that level of ridiculousness. But do you ever have to like tell some of these younger guys like, "Hey man, look, let's chill the fuck out"?
That used to be me until maybe about 3 or 4 years ago when I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to stay on the ground a little bit more. Not many people, come up to me and ask me stuff. A few people do, but if they want to go out and they want to do something crazy, man, you go for it. Just as long as you know the risks and hazards. If you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt yourself. But like Dazza is pretty crazy. He's another newie guy, another guy that's got a lot of talent. He was going to do a big balcony dive off for the balcony at Sawtell earlier this year. And we were all keen for it. I actually did the same balcony dive, I think it was 2016. And we were going to redo that. He was going to do it though. And just before they went out, Mark Mercedes came backstage and he said, no, it's not happening. The venue doesn't want that to happen. And he ended up just doing a moonsault off the second rope. But yeah, so
I mean, it's definitely, you have the restrictions from the venue. It is what it is.
Depends on safety as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably more of the younger guys that are coming in, they have these grandiose ideas of, maybe seeing it one too many TLC matches.
On that, mate.
But and that's the thing. I mean, 10 years into the wrestling business, how many more years? Like I think every wrestler has a bump count that they have in their bodies. How many more years do you see yourself doing this for, Randall?
I don't know, man. I think my body will tell me when it's time. I think I've really calmed down on doing the crazy stuff. People that come to IWA shows would obviously know that. I if I do a dive, it's for a big show. I'm going to do something crazy regardless of mask kamikaze, But I've really toned down the way I work, especially the past couple of years. I was really starting to hurt and was really over just waking up the next day and just being sore for a week, and it affects your everyday life. So I've really toned down the way I work. So hopefully, that's added a few extra years to however long I'm going to wrestle. I mean, I'd love to get to 20 years, but we'll see, man. We'll see.
So when you got into pro wrestling, did you sit down and say, right, this is a list of goals that I want to accomplish within X amount of time or in my career in pro wrestling?
I'm not really goal driven. I think I just wanted to wrestle. That was my main goal, I think. And just watching guys like, Jeff Hardy was a huge inspiration, obviously, with the high flying stuff. Kane is another huge inspiration, The Mask, Rey Mysterio, obviously. Just seeing guys like that, I wanted to be as cool as them. I'd watch them growing up and I was looking at them like, man, they're just like the stuff they do in the ring, the way they act, the way they look, the way they talk. I wanted to be like that, They were my goals, man. I just wanted to go out. I wanted I guess I wanted people, or I wanted kids to look up to me like I looked up to them. You know what I mean? So
sure.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a goal to go over to the United States or, to go overseas to like Japan, or was Australia where you wanted to be and where you wanted to sort of have your main focus on?
I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. I mean, I would have loved to have gone. I mean, there's still time, I guess, but not anytime soon, though.
Maybe not quite yet.
Yeah, no. I mean, it would have been great to go overseas and do that kind of stuff. But I think especially in kind of in the last 5 year gap, I've really noticed that there's a lot of talent here, and I mean even more so now. It just keeps getting better and better. But like I've always wanted our shows to look good. I've always wanted more people to come and to see how good Australian wrestling is. I mean, Mick Moretti did the whole, you're going to notice us thing. He's pretty much the main guy behind all that. I always thought that, but he made that what it is now. He made sure that people are going to notice us. They're going to notice Australian wrestling because everybody knows. Well, not everybody, but the people that know Australian wrestling know that we don't get the credit we deserve, man. Australian wrestling is really, really good sometimes, or all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, Australian wrestling that's always had great performers, and I think, as you mentioned, probably the last 5 to 7 years, we've really started to see Australian talent, making, and even New Zealand talent. Let's cross the pond to them as well. Yeah. That Australian New Zealand talent is really starting to get recognized over in those international brands. I mean, you look over at NXT right now, and even in WWE, New Japan, there's guys like Bronson Reed, aka Jonah Rock, the Iconics, to Neil Dashwood, and even obviously, Dakota Kai and Jay White, those guys from Australia and New Zealand that are really sort of breaking through, and obviously Murphy, who's got a very predominant spot over on Monday Night Raw. These guys are really sort of breaking down some barriers, which 10, 15 years ago, there was no Australian, there was no New Zealanders over there doing what these guys are doing. And I think they're opening a lot of eyes to the Australian scene and New Zealand scene. I've got to, let our little sister come in here as well. But, I think the Australian New Zealand scene is really starting to take notice. And, a lot of the Australian guys I speak to, keep saying like there's something happening here. And I don't know what it is, but there's something happening here in the Australian scene. And I think it's getting so close to really having, I'd love to see a nationally televised Australian wrestling show. I think it'd be great. I mean, look, but the thing was, if they were to do it and not have it related to another major promotion, but have Australian wrestling in Australia on a nationally televised show, would be sensational.
Oh, mate, it'd be great. I think, like, you look back and like talking to Mark Mercedes and stuff, he talks about like the late 90s and early 2000s, like they used to have like 500 people at every show, and it's like, what the hell? Like, why don't we have that now? But I think just in this day and age, there's just so much going on, and I'm not just talking about wrestling. Like, down the road there could be a new burger shop opening up. You've got international, like an international band at the local arena. You've got a footy game on. Live DJs everywhere. There's just so much stuff going on. I think wrestling just gets lost in the shuffle. Whereas back then, going out to the local RSL to the all you can eat was like an outing, like a family outing. And so many people did that. And wrestling was always at the, local RSL. I think that's why IWA was always drew those big numbers, because everybody went to the RSL. Nowadays, not a lot of people go to RSLs, so it's kind of hard when IWA draws 100 people, but
man, I remember going to the Roundhouse shows and the uni shows in the early 2000s for IWA. I was actually at the first ever crowning of the IWA Trans-Tasman Championship match, the ladder match, and I remember I was like 19, and I remember being there, and it was one of the most.
That's Billy Cole and Matrix.
No, that was before Matrix. That was Billy Cole and Jason Hilton, the Canadian.
Oh, okay.
And it was a ladder match, and those two guys beat the shit out of each other. And legit, if you told me there was 500 people there, I'd believe it. Like, the place was packed, and man, it went off when Billy Cole won. And that's just the thing, man. I think there's definitely that sort of thing starting to happen. But as you said, there's more options for people now. And I think social media and stuff like that, people are very on this a lot more, where it needs to be, I don't know. Like, I think there's definitely something happening in Australian wrestling, and I would like to see the Australian numbers grow a little bit more. But as far as like promotions go, and this is a question I asked Vinny Vane last week, do you think that Australian promotions could possibly work together to make something bigger than what currently is happening in the scene?
There is a possibility. IWA did work with MCW 2018. Was that 2 years ago? We did the IWA versus MCW show, which was a huge success. There is definitely a possibility. It just depends on who's running the promotion and what they want to accomplish and what they want to achieve, I think. Yeah, I totally think it's possible.
But I think it's got to come down to it's got to be beneficial for both parties. Like
absolutely.
Both parties are investing money, they're investing talent. There's got to be something there for people to get out of it for it to make it happen. So I'm not a businessman. I'm just a journalism dude. So I can sit here and talk all day, but when it comes to business, I got no fucking idea.
No, I think that was the goal with the whole IWA and MCW show. I think we both wanted to showcase, obviously, New South Wales guys. It was a state of origin show, New South Wales guys and Victoria guys, and show everyone that, Australian wrestling is, combining two promotions can be something special. And it was a pretty good show. It was one of the best shows we've done, I think.
Do you think that's the only way to really do it, though, is having one promotion from one state and another promotion for another state? Or do you think that two New South Wales promotions could essentially put on a super show?
Oh, man. Tough question. It just depends, I think. Depends on a few things. I mean, I'd love to see it. I'd love to be a part of it. I mean, it's possible, but it just depends, I guess. It depends on who's running the show and, yeah, like I said, what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's the main thing as well. Like in pro wrestling, there's definitely these larger than life personalities. So it's making sure that everyone can keep their egos in check and see that picture of why are we doing this? What do we plan on bringing to the table? How do we plan on executing it? And how do we make sure you're happy, fans are happy, workers are happy? And that's probably the hardest part of all of it, is making everybody happy at the end of the night, which is almost impossible to do.
Exactly right, man. I totally agree with you.
But, as you mentioned, as far as like being in the business for as long as you have you ever thought about getting into training wrestlers in the future, like starting your own school?
A few people have said that to me. I don't think I'd make a good trainer, to be honest. Like, I can critique stuff. Like, I'll watch someone go out and have a match, and then I'll just say, man, that was really good. I think, maybe if you did this a little more or that a little less, or work on this. Like, I mean, I'm no expert, but, I critique some guys. Some guys ask me how things look and stuff, but, I mean, I wouldn't even take advice off myself, to be honest. So.
Fair enough, man. But look, we are getting close to that time, man. And can you tell us, like, where can people find you, Randal? Where can people support you and get behind you and follow you on social media?
Probably the best place to follow my stuff would be on my Facebook page. Just look up Randal. I'm pretty sure you'd find me. Or on the IWA page, they're always kind of tagging us and stuff like that. My Instagram is private, so probably not the best place to. If you do request to follow me and I don't know you, I probably won't accept you. So please don't take offense to that. I do have Twitter at Randal Kid. I think I don't really use it that much, and I am on Wrestler merch, so if you want to get some t-shirts, just head on there. And I got some hoodies actually still.
Look at that. Show it off, man. Show it off. Let's make it a big screen so everyone can see your merch.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Look at that.
The Kamikaze Kid. Look at him there. That is a cool hoodie, man. I have to get myself one of them.
Yeah, I've got probably about 10 left. I think I'm flogging them off for $30 a pop. So if you want, just shoot me a message through my Facebook page and we'll see what we can do, eh?
There you go, guys. Well, look, Randall, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a great time sitting down and talking to you, and it's been absolutely amazing. And once shows start coming back up, you've got an open invitation on this show anytime. We can come back and do this again and really start promoting the upcoming show.
Who knows, mate?
Closer to it. But also I'd like to just thank the audience for tuning in tonight and watching another episode of Shooting the Shit Uncensored. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button to our YouTube channel. Come over and join us on Facebook in the Facebook group Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance. Randall, thank you very much again. And also, guys, just want to say a special thank you to all of our sponsors, A-Rock Designs, Wasif Championship Belts, and Signal Studios, who make this show possible every single episode, every single week. We wouldn't be here if it wouldn't be for them. Thank you very much for watching. And Randall, man, it's been awesome, dude. Thank you so much for your time, dude.
All good, brother. Thank you very much for having me.
Man, like I said, we're definitely going to do it again. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, bro. Awesome.